Ryan.
Hello, Rachel.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm on the edge, Rachel. The edge of my seat. The edge of my seat, the edge of my sanity, the edge of forever. I am just excited. As Big Kev would say, the Australian salesman icon Big Kev, he used to say,
love Big Kev.
I'm excited. He's no longer with us, Big Kev. I think you can gather why he's no longer with us because of his name. It kind of gives it away. But Rachel, I'm just really keen to talk to you about an episode of Babylon 5. I think that's what we're doing.
Yes.
Are we not talking about Star Trek Picard?
No.
I hear it's good now, unlike the other seasons where they also said it was good now for the first 3 or 4 episodes.
Don't threaten me with that. Don't mention Picard here.
Okay. Well,
We're here for B5. I was excited, and now you've brought me down.
I've brought you
You
down.
brought me down. But you know what you can do to bring me back up again, Ryan?
Explain Yum Yum to you.
Yep.
Rachel loves this part of the show. She just likes being reminded that we both together, as a married couple, agreed on this title for the podcast called YumYumPodcast. Because we watch Star Trek Discovery from time to time. We've talked about Star Trek Discovery. And there was a moment, an essence, such a scene where a, let me look up the dictionary definition for character. Nope, doesn't meet the standards of that. Well, an entity said the phrase yum yum. It makes no sense in context, and it makes no sense out of context, and that's why it brings us so much pleasure that we here at the Yum Yum Podcast remind you week to week what that was. A character licked her lips sexily, threw her hair back, and replied to a question with yum yum. I mean, that's how normal people talk. I'm sure that's how... Why didn't Kirk talk like that in the original series? What a silly goober he is. I'm going to tweet William Shatner about this. I'm just going to say, hey, Bill, you screwed up. You should have demanded a yum yum moment. But we're talking about Babylon 5. We're doing a rewatch, a revisit. So people, if you have not given B5 a look for yourselves, we recommend you do. It's worth watching. We like it very much. We like it so much, Rachel, that for this particular installment of Yum Yum 5, our podcast where we talk about Babylon 5, we brought in some guests. We wanted to share the joy, share the burden and the load of B5 on some people. Who did we wrangle in for this? Who did we get an interview with for this one?
We got some Marcus haters.
Marcus isn't even in this
No,
one.
but he's mentioned.
Is he? Oh, good.
Yeah, Delenn is running late because Marcus had to talk to her about some Ranger shit.
Oh, do you think he was prepping her for his musical number in the next episode that he's going to drop at the end of the credits? Do you think he was like, hey, Delenn, Delenn, which song do you think I should sing from Earth History Theater? And she just sitting there going, Motorbot. I don't know. I don't know Earth stuff. I'm just half human.
Zudi?
Yeah, Rebo and Zudi. So, Rachel, who have we caught?
No, we have 2 of the co-hosts from the last best Babylon 5 podcasts.
Sean and Steve, you're here. Hello, fellas.
Hello.
We're here. Hello, Sean.
Hello, we're here. Hello, Steve. Hello.
Hello, Ryan and Rachel.
Sorry,
Hello,
you
listeners.
You might hear my cat meowing in the background. I'm sorry.
Could you, which cat? Which cat?
It's Big Pete.
Big Pete?
Big Pete
Shut
and
the hell
Little
up,
Pete are
Big
the 2
Pete.
cats.
We're talking about Babylon 5. Cats are not welcome here, okay?
He decided to just walk in right now and start meowing right when...
This is a no cats podcast. We said that very early on.
Londo is worried he was going to be nibbled to death by cats.
Yeah, we can't do that. Londo did briefly appear in this episode, and he's afraid of cats. But
oh yeah,
yeah. Sean,
please,
put it away, please.
Put it away.
Put it away.
Back him away, toys.
He's literally just coming over to me right now. Calm down.
Steve, while Sean deals with his big pussy, could you tell us a bit about yourself and your podcast?
Yeah, we are a bunch of old pals. We've known each other. I've known Ben since middle school. He's the other host. I've known Sean since 2005. So we go back a ways, and we just thought it'd be a riot to go through all of Babylon 5. Ben has seen it all before, and this is Sean and I's first time. So we're doing episode by episode, similar to you, and we are reacting as first-time watchers, and Ben is kind of our the shepherd of our experience right now.
But the first rule of journalism is you go where the story is. Still, nothing could have prepared us for what we found.
We are talking about a specific episode of Babylon 5 we brought you guys on for. So who has the description of this? We've passed over the DVD description because here at YumYumPodcast, we are watching Babylon 5 through the DVDs because you can't trust digital media these days.
It's gone now.
It changes from site to site. They take it down, but the DVDs remain. They remain with their cool commentary tracks. They remain with their funky menus. They remain with the original TV spots, which, by the way, for the one that we're talking about today, the TV spot had a special little twist to it where it was presented as an ISN TV spot.
That's clever.
Where they
That's
had a
very cool.
narrator
That's
and
neat.
they did the whole entire thing like you're watching a special news report this week about Babylon 5. Really, back in the days where advertising for shows, yes, could be corny, could be misleading, but also could be fun. So who is Jim Henson's the storyteller on this DVD description?
That will be me. I have that. So the episode is, as we've said, The Illusion of Truth. And the plot summary we have is Sheridan gives clearance to a news team that says it wants to make an unbiased documentary report on B5 and its crew. But there may be no way to undo the damage when the supposedly truthful program airs.
Wow. It is a very much a counterpart, a mirroring, a pairing with And Now for a Word, the previous ISN episode.
That was one of my favorites.
I think we called it the best episode of season 2.
I think I said it.
recall.
Yeah, I think I said it was my favorite of season 2. I'm pretty sure.
That's a fantastic episode, and The Illusion of Truth is an interesting one to pair it with to see how the show has changed and how the universe of Babylon 5 has changed, as well as just ISN itself. My history with this is very simple. I've always just been okay with this one. I think it's just a bit of a tough thing because And Now for a Word is the entire episode is dedicated to the full gimmick, while here, The Illusion of Truth is what I'm far more used to with the We Have a News Report episode, where I think of stuff like The West Wing or Battlestar Galactica, where they spend the first 15, maybe even 15 minutes or maybe in the first half of the episode showing us the report being made, and then they play the report at the end. So this hasn't always had that major hit for me, but I do find it incredibly funny as an episode. I think in season 4 it goes with a lot more of a darkness in each episode, a lot more of a direct hit on all of the story beats, and I find immense...
That goes hand in hand with the fact that it's less and less episodic.
Exactly. And so I find a lot more of a humor factor to The Illusion of Truth because you know that ISN is going to twist the words into some horrible, evil, bizarre narrative. And once you see how they do it, I do get a smile on my face, as well as disgust, but mainly I do get a chuckle out of how much Babylon 5 screwed themselves this week. Rachel, what about you? The Illusion of Truth.
It's one that I'm always like, oh yeah, that other ISN episode. It has the guy with the really cool voice.
He does have a really cool voice.
Mm-hmm. He does. Very sultry. And then that's it. Propaganda. Woo!
Propaganda, woo, no, Rachel, it's propaganda, boo, boo. Sheridan has his cranky face on when he sees the report. When we cut back to him, he doesn't look very impressed.
I love that a photo of it's just fucked up.
She just leaves. Sean, what about you?
She didn't stick around for the whole thing.
She didn't stick around for the whole thing. Sean, what about you? The Illusion of Truth. What has been your overall reaction to this one, your thoughts on this one, and what did you think about when we said, hey guys, you got to come on for this ISN episode?
I was happy. I was happy to rewatch this one. I like this one. I think it's. I agree that I don't think it hits quite as hard as and Now for a Word in terms of, because it is like, it doesn't have the novel structure like you said. It doesn't have. It's not the fully immersed in it, which is such a neat way of kind of handling it. But I still like it a lot in terms of. I think the setup for it is interesting. I like the. I like seeing that, obviously it's been established that ISN, obviously changed because it's now just straight up a propaganda wing of the New Earth government. Before it was more of a kind of like a normal straight up news channel, but it was still kind of biased, and like you kind of saw how like there were kind of like misgivings about Babylon 5 in that last one. And then in this one, it's like, no, it's just straight up. They're just portraying it as, like it's just a horrible place. And Sheridan has, obviously this very kind of like race baiting kind of attitude that they have of just like, oh, he's mixing up with aliens and now he loves aliens and more than people and that sort of thing. I liked all that stuff. I really like how they established Sheridan being worried about his dad, and then they deliver that thing just like during the news report, and they don't initially show his reaction about his dad being missing and the farm being burned down and all that. And the last scene of just there being like no audio and like everyone is really upset and Sheridan's just looking away. I really like all that stuff. So overall, I still think it's, even if it's not quite as effective, I still like it a lot as an episode.
I think it's tough because that first one, and Now for Word, is like I mentioned, one of my favorite episodes of all, Babylon 5. So there is definitely big shoes to fill, and I struggled with that with this episode. Like, I want to watch it for what it is, but it's hard because the shadow of that episode is pretty wide. It casts a wide shadow. But I like it. I think it is extremely, what's the word? It just feels very contemporary. Like, these are tricks that the right-wing media does now, and JMS is calling it out before. I also do think, Ryan, I think it's very funny as well. It's this really weird sense of humor where it's like, of course ISN is going to fuck these guys over. And then they do, and it's funny, but it's also scary. Kind of like when Donald Trump calls him Meatball Ron. It's like, oh, that's funny. Like, that's a funny thing that Donald Trump said, even though he's a horrible man. So yeah, I liked it. I think it's a general, like a really high point in the season.
We've had to revisit this episode many a time, so we know the gimmick of it. We know that this is going to be that episode. But when looking at it today, just the lead up to that, what did you think of it?
I found myself enjoying a lot of the weird JMS-y sort of lines in the preamble. Like, life in the war room. It's just like, he had fun writing that. He thought, contrast.
The war room is empty now that they've defeated the big bad guys. So what are we going to do with this set now? And Ivanova basically looks at the camera and say, no, the set will be used again. Don't worry. We will still use the set. This isn't going to
disappear like Earhart's.
This isn't Earhart's. This won't disappear randomly, and we don't talk about it ever again.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P. Earhart's.
R.I.P.
Warren Keffer's abode.
I loved Earhart's. Great place.
Sean and Steve, for you coming back to this, obviously, like we said, And Now for a Word hangs over this, but even in itself, the illusion of truth, it's one where I imagine you both remember it for the back half, or once the report starts happening, once they get the reporter interviewing people. But what was it like for you both just to see the preamble, the lead up to this? Because I think oftentimes with television shows, that cold open or the lead up to what the eventual pitch of the episode kind of gets forgotten about or can get overlooked in the art form of telling the story. What did you guys think of it?
I don't want to put our friend Ben on blast here, but
wow, whoa,
Ben.
Sounds like you're going to.
For example, our friend Ben, co-host of our show, we did a lot of comedy together. He had a show in Chicago that ran for like about a year. And the premise was, it's these actors putting on a play. And the first half of the show was the behind the scenes drama, and then the second half of the show was the play. But as the audience, we all knew all this drama, and we were just excited to see how that incorporated itself in this performance.
This is a deep cut, Steve.
What I'm trying to say,
like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's a good premise. And so what I'm trying to say is that, like, I enjoyed it because I was watching it like, I know this is all going to come up again. And I am excited to see how these rascals at ISN are going to spin this.
Because
I enjoyed it because
they were setting it up to knock the pins down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're setting up the dominoes. Yeah, and it's like, that's fun because you know what's happening. The first time through, I was a little bit like, I don't know what's going on. This is probably going to be bad. But this time I was like, yes. this is what Sheridan said, and I bet they're going to cut to this, and lo and behold.
Yeah, it was a satisfying, and you could tell that they were kind of building because they kind of paused a bit on Londo yelling at Sheridan.
The sort of like screen capture, camera
the camera click
moments
at the end of certain interviews to say this is going to come back later to bite them.
Yeah, and it's like, there you go. We know that's going to come back. And it was just like, and we see, like, who could listen? If I saw a news report and I saw someone getting dressed down by Londo, I'd be real fired up. I'd be like, wow, can't believe he's letting Londo step all over him. But like a lot of stuff like that. I enjoyed seeing that, even if you kind of, you don't necessarily know exactly where it's going. You know it's going to be bad. You don't know exactly how bad it's going to be. But I thought, I was fine with it because it had a good payoff. Like they really paid it off well.
Even the station's renegade leader, John Sheridan, appeared subservient to the tempers of alien representatives. What's not as clear is why a decorated war hero who fought aliens during the war and allegedly broke away from Earth to achieve greater freedom would tolerate such behavior.
This particular one for Babylon 5 is actually quite divisive within the fan base, I've come to learn. Lots of people do not like it, lots of people do. And I think, just to boil it down, it is, do you believe the pitch? Do you believe in the premise of Sheridan at this point in the story, at this point in the war, where they've separated off, at this point after having defeated literal ancient alien gods, would be willing enough to let an obvious propagandist come onto Babylon 5 with free reign? That is the teetering of the episode of how much do you believe that? Not just the, Sheridan, like we all on our podcast make the loving statement of Sheridan's a bit of a dummy, but even outside of that, is this a believable premise to actually be fulfilled upon? And I think that's where the divide can happen, because for myself, on some watches of it, I do get frustrated with this one because of that, of just going, I cannot believe that they would allow these people on the station. And I know some
just kick them right off.
But we also need an episode to happen. And I've had that complaint with other stories, like in Battlestar Galactica, where I just go, I don't believe that they would even allow this premise to happen, but then they do because you need an episode. And so I've always had that tug of war with this. Now, Rachel, what about you? What do you think of just that central kind of conflict when it comes to the ability to engage with the episode? Do you buy the pitch?
Oh, I refuse to critically examine it. I just go, okay, moving on. Because if I did, it would fall apart. And at the end, when he's just like, I knew what I was getting into, it's just like, shut up, you fucking idiot. Like, the defenses that he gives of like, we did these things to protect ourselves. It's like, no. That makes it worse, Sheridan. Short declarative sentences can be manipulated easily by context. You gave them unlimited access and a tour by a Mbryo. No, that's not what you want.
So for you have to not think about it too much to enjoy the episode, or it falls apart for you. Interesting. Because I can, on some watches, I just fully embrace it and I go, I can see how this makes sense. But on other watches, I can't. So I do like rewatching it, though, because it's always a gamble of what it's going to be, and I really love how it's directed. This is one of my favorite directed episodes. I actually think it does some of its newsy direction stuff better than And Now for a Word. Even though it doesn't go as overt with the gimmick, I actually think it has some nice subtle things from when it transitions to a normal Babylon 5 looking episode to a news presented version of B5. I think it's really blends
visually
those.
constructed very well.
Steve, how do you feel about this? When it comes to accepting the premise of an episode, and how do you feel about it when it comes to the illusion of truth?
It's Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from, because it is a huge leap because we all know what ISN is. Sheridan should absolutely know better. But I do buy it from him because, like, first of all, like you said, Sheridan's a big dum-dum, and I think that is a part of his character. But I also think he's, like, at this point in his life, I think he's kind of an optimist. Like, he just won this war, and I think he really does want to believe that there are soldiers like him within this political machine. Like,
he's a fool in love.
Exactly. He's just like,
Yeah.
I believe you because I myself, I've been in these big organizations, and I know that you can change it from the inside. You hear that a lot, at least here in the States, with like kind of these right-wing organizations. People are like, I can go in there and fix it from the inside, and then that never happens. And so, like, this rings very true to me. Like, I can see him being like someone with an NPR tote bag and being like, yes, the press is very important, and I do believe in reporters doing what they can to get a little truth out. So I think he's definitely the kind of man who is optimistic about that sort of thing. And it kind of makes the ending more heartbreaking to me, where it's just like, no, I was wrong. Whoops.
To further your point, there is at the beginning the optimism and the naivete that he doesn't even know that President Clark would use his own family against him. He comes at it with, I think they would, but honestly, why would they? That's one of the first things I would think they would do.
Like, he still thinks that there's this level of gentleman rules of engagement.
He hasn't gotten to, even though he has rebelled against Earth, he's fought against Earth, he still very much is the noble soldier of, we don't shoot first, and if we just bang our fists on the table, eventually Clark will step down and the legislation will put it all right again.
And also the idea that he's brought up before of, like, I won't start a fight, but I'll finish one.
And I think he does see this as an opportunity to further that idea, where even in one of the interviews he does talk about what he thinks would happen, which is people understand what's going on. Clark will be taken down, and we take the steps forward to heal and become better. But as the rest of the show, outside of this episode, is telling us, actually, that probably won't happen. You might need to take action, because Babylon 5 is very much pushing the idea of, we don't just stand there and moralize and give speeches. We actually have to take action to get these things to change.
Your beliefs.
Enact change in your beliefs. Sean, how do you feel about the illusion of truth and accepting the premise of it?
I really had no problem accepting it. I think, with all due respect, I think the criticism that Sheridan should have just, like, not fallen for it and just kicked the guy out. I think sometimes there is how do I put this? There's sometimes a criticism that I see online of, like, certain pieces of media where it's like, why didn't the character make the perfect smart choice in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why didn't they just do this? And because isn't this the obvious smart thing to do? And it's like, yeah, maybe it was, but this, people fuck up. Yeah, Sheridan probably shouldn't have trusted this guy, but the guy, he sweet talked him. He gave him the whole spiel. He fell for it. It's sort of like that liberal optimism of, like, oh, I can still, like Steve was saying, it's like, oh, I can change it from the inside. Like, I can get the truth out there. I can, even if they're going to spin it, like, I can still make this work. Like, I completely see Sheridan doing that. And it's like, for like a real world parallel, it's like, why do any left wingers go on, like, Fox News or any, like, right wing media? You know what I mean? Like, they shouldn't, but many of them do. And they think that they can get their message out to people. But of course, what always happens is that it gets it gets selectively edited, or it gets kind of mushed into the right-wing machine and some kind of way to make them look unfavorable. Like, that always happens.
We've seen this evolve. We've seen this evolve, especially with the internet age, with lots of streamers and YouTubers. There's a whole rabbit hole about the debate bros and how they will invite these left-wing leaning people on and just completely twist it all up and make their followers devour these people and misconstrue their words. And these people you think would know better than to do that, but at the same time, it's that thing of, I want to get my point across, I want to talk, and I want to open a dialogue.
And there's exactly opening a dialogue, and there's a belief, I think, genuinely on Sheridan. Like as Steve said, he's an optimist, and I think he really just thinks that like they're going to see the truth. Like we're going to get the truth out. Like even if they're going to spin it, we're going to get it out there. And then obviously that it doesn't happen.
They abuse people's hope.
Horribly.
That's what they do.
Right. Exactly. And it's very much, he was, he was swindled basically. And I think also part of it was that like, the guy was also like, well, I'm going to do the story anyway. So you better give me
your point
info or else I'll make it even worse. And maybe Sheridan was like, oh man,
and like
I should do it.
This was around a time too in the 90s where like I hesitate to say left wing, but the more left party in the US, were obsessed. They were obsessed with like crossing the aisle. Like we are going to be, that's how the Democrats are going to win. Like we're just going to shake hands across the aisle. Like people were obsessed with it. So I could definitely see.
Well, it was like what? Like Clinton was president, but I think there was a Republican Congress at this point, right? Like in the mid-90s.
Well, according to this, in 1999, Clinton's administration implemented a thing that was going to be helpful to the benefit of humanity. I like the little this year in ISN.
Oh yeah,
well,
they didn't know, they couldn't have predicted the Monica Lewinsky.
To even your point further, though, to remove it from right wing, left wing stuff too, you also get these powerful people, and I'm not putting any objective like moralism here, but like I think about Nixon talking to Frost, where it's like he's this powerful guy, and he's like, I can just talk to this person, and I'll get my side
of control of this situation.
I'm in control.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk it out.
It's just hubris. Exactly.
And I think Sheridan is blinded by a few things, but I do find myself on the occasion going this far into the story, though. After everything he's seen, after everything he's encountered, I do find it hard to swallow on the occasion. On this particular watch, I was looking at it critically, and I still enjoyed it. I just went, you know what? I still enjoy it.
That's
like
the decision that he's made.
We're going through all of these points that we're talking about here, and I side with those. But on other watches, I just go, I agree. We don't want our characters to be imperfect, like Superman type characters, or else you get a Michael Burnham character, like these perfect Superman characters, or you get a Michael Burnham where it's like they're super perfect except for when they're not, but when they're not, they're still perfect.
Flaw that they learn to overcome each and every season.
But they're always right. And I will admit, I like that Sheridan is more often than not, he can just be wrong. There's whole episodes where every other character goes, no, Sheridan, we're not doing that. That's stupid, actually. And he's like, but I'm the lead. And they're like, no, shut up.
John,
he's
no.
So angry
John.
when he loses votes. Like he's like, he proposes a vote in the war room and he gets taken down a notch, and he's like, but I'm in charge.
But I'm in charge. It's even a small example of this in the episode when he's trying to deny what's going on within himself to Ivanova, and she just says, I've known you too long. I can read that face.
Tell that to your face.
Tell that to your face.
I'm not worried.
Tell that to your face. Come on, John. I've known you too long to start playing stupid now.
We have to have Dan Randall convince Sheridan and perhaps even us, the audience, why this story should even happen, why this news report should even be allowed to exist within the narrative of Babylon 5. And I found him rather intriguing because he isn't like Cynthia Talkman from the previous ISN episode where she has this, I'm an objective news reporter. I'm not coming in with any malice or bias within me. I'm actually just someone who's here to report on what's happening on these 36 hours, whilst always slipping in my opinion, but I'm pretending I'm not. I actually really liked him as the opposite of that, where he just breaks it down. There is no such thing as being objective. There is no such thing. There's always going to be a point of view. There's always going to be a bias, but how much of the truth is going to slip through it all? And just him admitting, I know ISN is what it is. Of course I do. I'm not stupid, but I stayed in so I could, as we have talked about, fight it from within the system, tying in Dan Randall and Sheridan of these people who are like, we can work it from within the system, but how much do you actually believe Dan Randall, and where does that go through? Now, for you, Rachel, what did you think about all of this? Just having already seen it, but also just as its own thing of him sitting here laying out the case of why he should be able to do this all.
I love it because it's something that was like, this thing was still around in the 90s, existed long before it exists now, it'll exist far into the future, because communication is always about getting your message across. And every human being has biases and prejudices and an agenda. Everybody has a grift of some sort on some level. Even if it is just you want to be liked by the other person that you're talking to. So all of it adds up for me.
And with news always, and especially now,
Yeah.
there's some corporate thing attached to it that's pumping out a certain message.
Yeah.
You know, a lot
Watch
of
our
Australia...
news over everybody else because we have the truth. Unlike all of the other channels that say that they have the truth. And people watch the one that aligns with their views the most.
This is a story being told about what news and reporters and all of that look like, what they can become, and the guises they put on when underneath a totalitarian rule. And that's interesting in itself. But this being a science fiction show, this being something that we can look at within our own world, we can extrapolate this scenario with what we have going on. Like here in Australia, like 99% of the news media is just some tendril of Rupert Murdoch and his group, and they push out their own messages, even though this newspaper has a different face and they're slamming this newspaper, but that newspaper is also Rupert Murdoch. And we hear time and time again about how many up-and-coming journalists get disillusioned because they can't really push the things they want to push because realistically, there's a corporate agenda that the news exists in.
Yep.
Here, this is a evil propaganda government agenda, but I think it is rather fascinating to just hear what Dan Randall has to say, removing it from what he actually is in the episode, just removing it from that, just to hear this conversation about, can you slip in the truth when the news media arm is controlled by the government or controlled by some corporate tycoon or whatever it is? Is it possible? And what good does that actually do?
Sean, did you believe it when he said that he was actually, like, did you think that he was actually going to try and slip in the truth in the presentation?
No. Like, I think it was a good line.
It was a good play on Sheridan, for sure.
Oh, like, I think it was absolutely the perfect thing to say to Sheridan. Like, definitely a thing that Sheridan would buy, I feel like, because it's like, I mean, like what Steve said, it's like, yeah, Sheridan understands because he used to be a part of EarthGov. Like, he understands trying to kind of work things out from the inside and doing your best. I do think him being like, oh, objective reporting is a myth. It's like, it's, I think when him saying that, like I understand it's impossible to be like 100% fully objective, but it's also like that's already a moment where it's like, and you can tell what this guy's going to be doing. It's like, it's not hard for him. He's already kind of convinced himself. And maybe to him, who knows? Maybe to him, he really genuinely feels like that's what he's doing. Like that could be, in a sense, something he does feel like he's doing. But I feel like it's. I was pretty quickly like, this is what he's going to say to get himself in the door.
We see it as a lie, but does he?
Yeah, it's. I think it's most likely a lie. Yeah, I think he just knows what to say. Probably giving him too much credit to say that he's like, oh, maybe he really believes it. It's like, nah, I don't think so.
Steve, what are your thoughts about what Dan Randall is putting down in this sequence where he's talking about objective news and having to slip in the truth within a system that is inherently controlled and corrupted? What do you think about all of that?
Oh, I think he's a smooth operator. I think he knows exactly how to get what he wants. I like, me as a viewer, I didn't buy it at all, but I was also like, yeah, Sheridan's gonna fall for this. This guy fucking got Sheridan's number. Which also I think ties into why I believe the premise of this episode, because like Dan Randall, this guy is fucking smooth. He's smooth as hell. He knows exactly what to say and how to get it.
Yeah, he's a handsome man as well.
I do not think he believes it. I think he's like a really practiced member of this party. Like, he knows exactly how to get ISN what ISN wants. So I don't think he believes it. I think he is putting on an act, and I think he's very good at it. That's what I read into it.
I think he believes the part where he says there's no such thing as an objective story. I think that part. At
Oh,
least
sure. Well, that's the despicable
thing to say.
That's the despicable thing that these people do, is that they put in a little bit of truth, and then it's like putting your dog's medicine in some peanut butter. Like, oh, you son of a gun! You tricked me. Oh, you tricked me.
I'm on the same page. I don't believe in Dan Randall, but I do think what is being talked about here, when you look at it, is something to postulate over. Like, what does a journalist do when they're taken over or they are under the control of something that's far more sinister with an agenda? Like, what is the responsibility there? What do they do?
What do they owe their audience?
And what does that, and what do these people actually look like? Because I think for a wide swath of people out there, the idea of the reporter is out there to look for the truth has faded very much so. We're a lot more cynical on that, but that's still a part. But that's still a part of the image of a reporter. I'm gonna get the truth no matter how hard it is. But this is saying this is super hard. You can only give a little bit of the truth, and does that even matter? Like, does him giving even a little bit, if he even
says
does,
that a little is better than none, but we see the damage that this report does to Babylon 5's reputation back home as the season and the series continues. And you do wonder, would they have been better off not giving them this?
I really like how he even says that in a roundabout way, yeah, we're going to fuck you. Of course we're going to do that.
Oh, yeah.
You know that?
Yeah.
I know that.
Yes, this is going to be a propaganda piece.
We both know this is going to be a hit piece, but how much of the truth are we afforded to slip in? And now, just to have a little bit of fun, because this is what I like about Babylon 5, is it's easy just to go, Dan Randall's evil, bad guy sucks, which is obviously what it is. But I like to have a little bit of fun of, he does share two important pieces of truth that he manages to slip in. One of which is that Sheridan has amassed a fleet and just finished off an intergalactic war, which in future episodes of Babylon 5, we find out that a lot of people on Mars and Earth don't even know that war happened. They have no clue. So Dan managed to slip in, oh yeah, by the way, Sheridan fought a war and won recently, a war that we aren't talking about on ISN because, you know, Earth is with the shadows, whatever. Shh, we don't talk about that. And it's both, the last one is both veiled as a threat, but it's also a valuable piece of information Sheridan didn't know at the start of the episode. His father is on the run. His father, Sheridan's father, is free. He doesn't say, we've caught Sheridan's father. He says Sheridan's father has escaped. We don't know where he is. That's a piece of truth that he puts in at the very end. So I think it's rather interesting to look at it in that way as well, where, yeah, we can look at Dan Randall as the piece of shit, but he does put in little pieces of truth every now and then in the way that he said he would. Like, he never said, oh, I'm going to be a good guy and make Babylon 5 look good. I'm going to try my best to slip in little pieces. And he...
No, that's interesting. Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, and he got him.
That's what happens when you've seen the show before. You notice these things.
You notice these details. You notice things.
Also, he's a handsome
JMS,
man, so he can...
The JMS special. Yeah, he could say anything.
Yeah.
But it's something to just sit back and reflect upon, because what I like about this one, and you join it with a now for a word, it really makes you scrutinize what media, like journalism, looks like currently, as well as what it looked like in the 90s. Like, you guys have said it, a lot of these tricks that we see used in this episode, they still use today in the news. And isn't it kind of funny that that's the case?
Oh yeah, and this is when this was around when I think, like, at least in the US, it's like when 24-hour like news media was really like starting to kick off. So it was starting to get real bad. It was starting to get real bad.
The objective journalist is one of those great myths you read about, like a griffin or a phoenix or an honest politician. Everybody's got an agenda, whether they admit it or not. But you try not to let it get in the way of the truth.
Talking about real bad, Garibaldi's here.
He sucks!
Hey, there he is.
Cranky-baldy this season. Cranky Baldy.
Yeah, he's been a little bit of a grumpy Gus this season. I think it's just because
A little bit.
He's a little...
people were happy to see
Rachel.
Sheridan come back, but they did not care about Garibaldi
Guys,
except for Jakar.
cut him some credit. He has some PTSD flashbacks every now and then, so we know something's wrong with him, okay? He had his little black and white
Something
PTSD
happened.
flashback.
Yeah, he saw that
Something
weird
happened to him.
screensaver, and he was like, okay, great.
He saw the
I quit
psychedelic
my job
screensaver.
now. I quit my job.
Thank you.
That is what I do when I see a strange screensaver. I am just like, yes, message received.
I want to point out that for people who do not listen to Sean and Steve's podcast, we recommend you do, but you guys always point out that JMS is a big nerd and he yells at the Usenet groups about little things in his show. Like, this is the explanation, guys. This is it. Like, I explained it, so you don't have to message me about it anymore. And he does
It's
that,
there.
and I don't know if you
he's
noticed this, but he does it here with Garibaldi, where Garibaldi has got this client who's talking on and on and on about this statue and this god and all of this stuff, and we find out it's a Drazi statue, and the language being used, and Garibaldi very quietly just JMS saying, guys, no longer complain about this. The Centauri have multiple gods, yet they still use the term Great Maker, which in most religions, Great Maker is in a monotheistic religion, so just the one god. And in this episode, Garibaldi says, every religion outside of the Centauri, every alien culture outside of the Centauri that have a Great Maker is a monotheistic one. And it's like, that's JMS being like, so you can stop fucking messaging me about
yeah.
it. Don't you
I've seen
fucking
the
message me
post.
about it anymore.
He's like,
They're
I
the
covered
exception.
it. I covered it.
Fuck off.
Do not at me. Do not at me. I've seen it.
It's just
I've covered it
when
in
you're
the show.
sick
when,
of it.
you know,
I'm
it's
sick
just
of
what
it. I
happens
put it
when one
in.
of your main motivations is just that nerds not to be mad at you. You know,
know.
I get it.
I know that
I understand.
I know that we as a collective have all been like crapping on Garibaldi season 4 Angst Boy arc a little bit, but maybe I'll be the one alone in this conversation. But I actually really liked Garibaldi when he was dealing with this client. It felt very season 1 Garibaldi, where he's all being like smooth operator and with all the quips, and Jerry Doyle's just really leaning into that Garibaldi we used to like, but we're seeing him in a different context, and he's just playing this guy who's hamming it up. That actor, he was hamming it up big time. I just really enjoyed that. I thought it was very fun.
Yeah, he was good. He was good.
And when you guys saw Garibaldi in this episode and you knew the pitch of it, when you knew, oh, this is an episode where ISN is a propaganda arm, and then it's like, oh, and Garibaldi's in this story, what did you think was going to happen, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think when, at the very least, I mean, I think when he was approached by the guy, it's like, oh, I see he's gonna be talking some trash, and I was like, all right, I'm sure that's gonna happen, but it's like, I mean, you know, perfect outlet for him. It's like, and he got sweet talk too. I'm sure he wasn't necessarily wanting to, because obviously he is not. Garibaldi has been established as not a fan of what EarthGov is doing in President Clark. He's not a fan of that. We do know that about him at the very least. So I'm sure he wasn't looking to. But I think same as Sheridan, he got sweet talked just for different reasons. He viewed it as a way to finally be able to kind of like voice his misgivings about Sheridan. But his misgivings about Sheridan are not really, I would say, quite the same as like EarthGov's and that sort of thing. But he does mention, obviously, later on, he mentions that like, oh, he only listens to these 2 aliens. He doesn't listen to anybody else. And I don't think he necessarily meant that as like an anti-alien thing, but it's very easy to.
Well, I'll put it back to you, Sean. Hasn't Garibaldi been a xenophobic piece of crap the entire show, though?
Well, yeah, I mean, he has been.
So why wasn't it?
I can't argue against that. That is true.
He's a racist cop. Not anymore. He's now a racist PI or whatever he does.
Now he's just like a racist guy.
He's a racist man.
I mean, I know at the very least he is not a fan of the you know what I mean. So it's like, yeah, it plays into, he's kind of a perfect pawn in this.
Yeah, and for you, Steve, I know that you're not you have not been a big fan of angsty, mean, angry Garibaldi.
Crankabaldi.
So when you put Crankabaldi here, when you put Cranky Kong here, and you know that this is an episode where they're going to twist things around and they're going to bring things back. I mean, how did you feel about that being here? Because there have been several episodes this season where Garibaldi just doesn't show up, and so when he does show up, it's like, oh, we know he's going to be angry. How are they going to use that anger in the episode? What did you think about it all?
I thought it was fairly compelling. I mean, I think on paper it's a very interesting bit of storytelling, and it was nice to see him voice his concern about Sheridan. I don't think Jerry Doyle. We talk about it a little bit in our show. I don't think Jerry Doyle's up for the assignment, but I think the words on the paper are interesting for the most part. When he tries to be a bad boy, it's like, oh God, bad writing. But I just in general, yeah, I think it's very interesting on paper. And Jerry Doyle often is close, but yeah, I just don't enjoy those scenes as much. But I think it makes sense. I think it makes total sense.
I really thought Jerry did a great job in this episode when he was pausing and thinking about whether or not he should talk to them. They just... Stephen Furst is the director of this episode, and I want to talk about him in a little while, but he really had a lot of moments where he clearly directed the actors to just take that moment, take that pause, and just really lean into it. Let your face do the acting. And I thought Jerry Doyle, where you see the cogs in Garibaldi's head of everything, he's taken in all these things Dan Randall said, and he's thinking about the pros and cons of it, and he decides to just pull on it and just go fully in. I thought Jerry Doyle really nailed that side of it, but I don't have as big of a problem with Jerry Doyle's performance as you guys do, but also Garibaldi's never been one of my favorite characters in the world, so I don't look at his performance as critically as, say, Londo or Andreas, Katsoulis as Jakar, or, Mira Falan as Delenn, or any of them.
Garibaldi's over there, and he comes in and out of the show.
He has snarky comments to make. Rachel, Garibaldi, for you, you are not the biggest season 4 Garibaldi fan, but we've been enjoying it on our rewatch because we know what's happening. Sorry, guys, we know.
We know where it's going.
We know what's happening, and we're enjoying it.
Lost in the woods here.
We're babes in the woods.
We know.
We're on a roller coaster
but
ride.
I find it just as frustrating knowing what's going on with Garibaldi as I did the first time. Because I keep on being like, just figure it out already. Just figure it out so you can stop being an asshole.
I want the show to figure it out. I want somebody to figure out because
no, this is not normal. Like Zach was like that. Like
Zach's
like something. Like he can really tell that something's not right.
But no one cares.
Garibaldi. But Garibaldi has that moment of explaining it to him, and then he's sort of like too busy with his new job.
That Sheridan gave him.
Mm-hmm.
What I really like about Garibaldi's interview, and Sean touched upon this moment here, is one thing I do appreciate about Garibaldi as a character that JMS writes in very well is Garibaldi can show us a side of himself that's very negative, very shitty, in a very flippant, casual, and almost you miss it type of way because of just how nonchalant Garibaldi is as a character. But I really thought it was damning when he said that Delenn is just this other alien. She's this other, like, he doesn't look at Delenn as this person. He looks at her as just another alien. Like, her and Lorien are just these freaky aliens that Sheridan talks to and listens to. I thought that was an interesting piece of insight into Garibaldi because Delenn and Sheridan are having this big seasons-long romance, and outside of Linnea, we don't actually get to hear much about what the other characters think of them at all, as a couple or as individuals in that way. And this is a moment where we get to see Garibaldi say, yeah, Sheridan is just in this relationship with this alien. He doesn't even want to acknowledge that, like, she's half human or she's actually trying to be, or she's a person. He just looks at her as just like how he does with pretty much everyone. Like, they're just people. They're not people to me. They're just things I have to contend with because I'm Garibaldi. I'm top dog, and they're just these freaky aliens. Steve, with Garibaldi and just that comment about Delenn and all that, how do you feel about Garibaldi as a character where he's one of our main guys? He can be the funny guy. He can be the best friend to people, but the show isn't afraid to make him just an absolute like piece of shit, like an absolute garbage man. How do you fare with that for him as a character?
I think it tracks. I think it's been that way from the beginning. And yeah, I think it's hard for me to say because I don't know. I obviously know something happened to him. It seems like it's a Psychor. He was captured. He was Manchurian candidated. Like something's going on. I don't know what it is. You two do. Sean, I hope you don't. That would kind of ruin the fun.
No, I don't know it. I don't know anything.
So I guess there is a little bit of frustration where I'm like, kind of what Rachel said, like, I know something's going on. Like, I want to know what it is. Like, can you just tell us what it is?
Just tell me already. I know that it's a big secret, and I know that it's important, so I just want to know.
He loves
Just tell me.
screensavers. That's all it is. He got Windows 95. It was new at this point.
He finally got custody of the motorbike.
Yeah.
Or he lost custody, and that's why he's angry.
Oh, Linnea took
what
his
if we
phone.
show him
those
toasters flying by? That's going to really
the pipes. The pipes keep coming.
The 3D pipes.
Different pipes.
That was my favorite. I loved watching those 3D pipes.
I do enjoy seeing him as kind of a civilian. I think that's interesting because something that Babylon 5 is really good at is kind of showing all of the different layers of what life is like. And I do enjoy, like, hey, I did my time. I want to be a snarky private eye. Like, sure, that's fun. I still don't really like Garibaldi that much, and I really don't like Jerry Doyle the man.
No.
But
No, he's
I like that.
that.
He was Garibaldi. So.
He was Garibaldi, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, he was like Garibaldi, but like worse, right?
Well, without JMS's ideals woven
worse. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, brother.
Sean, I want to hear a reaction from you. What did you think about how Garibaldi just dropped in how he looks at Delenn? This character that we as viewers have come to grow and appreciate and like, but that doesn't necessarily mean everyone in the ensemble of characters feels the same way as we do. What did you think about that?
I think it's interesting. I mean, it's like you said, I mean, we've been kind of waiting to see just some takes on this because we've been so, I don't know, kind of insulated, I guess, during the whole war arc and seeing just like Sheridan and Delenn developing and like we know everything. I always like it when we kind of see that outside perspective a little bit of like, we kind of know everything we know about these characters. We know them inside and out. We see them through everything, all the flashbacks, all of that. Like, and we've grown with them. But, people on the outside, they don't know these people as well. And it's sort of, it is interesting to see that. And I think, let's be real here. Garibaldi's feeling a little left out. Poor guy. He's lost his buddy. He's got a new gal. And, people didn't even miss him when he was gone.
He didn't even get to say goodbye to Sinclair.
No, he didn't get to say goodbye to Sinclair. That made me so sad. Like, that
was very sad.
That tugged on my heartstrings when Sinclair left and he left in that message. That got me. But yeah, no, and he had more of a connection with Sinclair. I mean,
they were best
genuinely,
friends. They were friends.
Absolutely, yeah. They were.
That was like his best friend.
I don't think Sheridan and him were ever like best of friends. They had a good relationship, but
but he used to be part of the inner circle, and now he's not.
He chose not to be.
Yes.
Yeah, but he
so I
felt
think he's
like he wasn't. After he got back, he felt like usurped by Lorian. Of like, you trust him more than you trust me.
Oh,
like,
my
yeah,
God.
you're keeping me out of this in case they're the telepaths, but really, what's going on behind this?
Yeah, he's just like, oh, you got a new alien friend, huh?
yeah. Welcome back. I have a wizard now. I have a wizard friend.
My friend is a wizard. He brought me back to life.
He has like a god complex. You can't talk to him anymore. He doesn't listen. Well, that's not true. He listens to Delenn, this other alien, Lorian, who was here for a while, maybe a few others. I just wasn't comfortable with the situation anymore.
The illusion of truth is all about those interviews and how they twist them and turn them and make them into something else. And I think everyone has their favorites or those favorite moments of how they've manipulated this and manipulated that. And for you, Rachel, what is yours?
Oh, I do love the Londo. Do love that. Because, particularly on this viewing, I was like, they don't even bother to, like, cover their mouths so you can lip read what they're actually, like, talking
You can
about.
see Sheridan smiling.
Yeah.
Like, this is a funny conversation, isn't
Yeah,
it?
like, oh my god, this fucking idiot.
Highly
But
irregular,
they're like,
Captain.
oh no, that's like, no, that's Sheridan being bullied by an alien. But my favorite is the pickup shots of him in a completely different location, asking the question, so it
Dan Randall,
completely changes the answers that they gave, because completely new context. That's always my favorite, because I was like, that background doesn't even look like it belongs on a B5 set. What the fuck
But
is
humans
this?
don't know that.
No.
They've never been on Babylon 5. They only hear about it on the news, the trusted source of information, the television. I adore how they fuck over Franklin each time in this episode. Franklin barely gets to do anything, but they keep making him the damning piece of evidence that they have against Babylon 5 in this insane narrative.
The report just jumps on him like every single thing he says, and like it seems like on the surface he says really the most innocuous stuff. Like he's just like, I am a doctor. I'm just trying to help my job.
And they make him seem
look
like
at this evil man.
They make him
Look
seem
at the
like a
terrible thing
Nazi
he just
scientist. They're like, look at him,
Yeah,
he's
it's like,
freezing
look at what he
people.
just said. Yeah, it's like it's like Jesus.
I just
poor guy.
imagine Franklin's dad sitting back at home watching this news report being like, my damn son, what a letdown. But I love how they keep fucking over Franklin, because in all honesty, he was the one when I first watched it, and even now, where I didn't even think about how much they were going to twist him around. When you see the Delenn interview and the Sheridan interview, and even that scene with Londo, I went, oh yeah, I can see how they're going to pick this moment, this moment, this moment. But with Franklin, they also on purposely don't show you some of the things that they use later, so it hits harder. And I really enjoy his stuff because he does seem the most inane and innocuous, and they turn it into the most vile, over-the-top thing. And I get great enjoyment out of that. Poor Franklin doesn't come out of this looking good. And he wasn't even trying to look good. He was just like giving them like direct answers.
He was just doing his job.
Oh, another piece I really love is Lanier doesn't get to talk at all. He just gets narrated over and made to look like an evil alien. I love that too.
I'm so disappointed that they didn't somehow use the shot of him headbutting the camera.
We'll get to the headbutt of the camera. But Sean, what about you? When it comes to this format, we all are here waiting to see those interviews get twisted around, get turned around, get chopped up, get turned into a new narrative. What one elicits excitement from you?
Well, like I really, it's sort of, you know, like certain things. I mean, I was really interested to see. I knew the thing about. I knew the Londo thing was going to factor in, and that was pretty funny. It was just, I like that the one Londo line they picked as him just being like, "This is highly
irregular captain,
highly irregular captain." Like, it's just Londo being a little bastard,
and he's even saying it in a sing-songy tone. He's not even saying it in like a villainous tone. He's even saying it like a jovial way.
Yeah, he's just being. Yeah, it's just Londo just giving out. It's just him being a little prick.
Like did you think Londo was going to show up in this episode? No,
he's just happy to be back on Babylon 5.
How horrifying it must be! Like, look at him. He's bowing to Londo. And he's
bowing
sure
to
Londo
he's bowing to the people we signed a non-aggression pact with. How dare he?
Yeah, it's like I don't know. Like, don't you have like an agreement with this entire whatever?
Well, that's the thing. The narrative changes whenever they like it to.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like,
right.
oh no, we don't like the Centauri now. They tried to fool us that one time.
Because, you know, that's how these bigots and racists and fascists work. They change it however they like to what's convenient.
Yes, absolutely. I really like the stuff in the bro. I really like when they talk to that doctor guy. When they talk to that guy who's just like
Indiri.
Yeah. He's. I could tell that he is ill. He is a. The fact that they. I think a thing that's very unsettling about it is that they keep bringing up that he is like a veteran, and they just assume that like, oh, we should have sympathy for him because he's a veteran and he is, his brain is all messed up, and so he thinks that the aliens are great. So we need to get over there, and we need to fix him. We need to.
And it wasn't our fault, by the way. It was the previous administrations
Right.
that screwed up his brain, especially the one during the Mbryo War. Because, see, that administration, they couldn't beat the Mbryo. We could that now, though, by the way. We could now.
Oh, yeah, because
what a great administration.
We need to protect Sheridan from himself because he's a human. So that means that he's good because all humans are good, all aliens are bad.
And if we just say to you that we want to kill him, that may turn you around on us. So if we say in these roundabout terms that we just want to capture him and get him treatment and maybe put him on trial, then we're good because we're still
about educating.
Because we're still parading around the facade that we're keeping up morals and laws and legislation and administrations and all the things that make us good.
Giving the confession looked awful.
That was great.
But a small thing that I noted with that, because I don't know if we're gonna dive into that part too much, but just the fact that she's just like, and everybody gave 10 names. It's just like, if that was genuine, why would everybody give exactly 10?
Well, that's what they need. It's a nice round number.
It's just like, okay, if you give us 10 names, we'll stop torturing you.
I love it. Also assumes that these people, even if they were like that, they have 10 people to name straight off the bat. I just love that type of thing. Now, for you, Steve, this is one where, like we said, this is following up of And Now for a Word, where a part of the joy for And Now for a Word was also that similar seeing how the news format can twist the things we know of our Babylon 5 characters, remove the context that we know of them. And so this is an even more amped up version of that, where we're seeing what a overt fascist propaganda version of ISN would do. So for you, what were some of those beats in the presentation of these interviews or talking head segments that really got to you?
Well, I think just that whole interview with Delenn and Sheridan, you just know it's going to be a shit show. And it's like, how big a shit show is it going to be? Oh, the biggest shit show. That was a lot of fun for me. And like you said earlier in this episode, Ryan, it's like, this is so dark and this is so frightening, but it's also really funny. Like, I really found a lot of humor in this. Especially like Rachel said, like, this man is clearly not in the same room when he's asking these questions. That is funny. That made me laugh. So I think that was the thing I was looking forward to the most, because it's like, this is just a bad idea. Even if you buy what this reporter is selling, like, don't bring Delenn into this. But I think that was interesting. But I think this time around, I was really interested in kind of those interstitials, like, in this day in history, we did this, and this is what's going on Mars.
The cycle got created. Yay!
Yeah, these guys are heroes. Our friends, absolutely.
Trust the core.
Trust the core.
They're your friends.
And what? On this day in history, they did the Mars stuff, and and that guy who gave up the names, like, that was again, I thought very funny, but also very disturbing. I think it's kind of this black humor that the show doesn't do a lot, because it's hard. Like, this is a really thin tightrope, and this episode really nails it.
And that also does have the history Easter eggs that JMS is very fond of.
The lore.
The Red Scare stuff, the McCarthy stuff.
Mm-hmm. One of the moments that I think is very effective, because we're talking about all this funny stuff, and like the Sheridan Delenn one is going to be the one that they're going to slice up the most, and there's a lot of dark gallows humor of seeing how they're going to do that, and seeing how they've cut the angle here and sliced up this bit here, and that's all wonderful. But I think what really makes sure what JMS does to make sure that this episode isn't a comedy gimmick episode is how they just drill down on Delenn. How they drill down on Delenn, and how in previous on this previous news report, they also drilled down on Delenn, but Cynthia Talkman tried to present her report as, I'm not giving my opinion, this is just how it is, whilst doing that. While Dan Randall, he's just doing nothing but that. He's just giving us, here's the narrative we've come up with. You're hearing my narrative. Delenn is the Rosetta Stone. She's the key to all of this. And I just found it very...
She did not have fun the last time she was on ISN. So.
And you can see how we've seen also in previous episodes she started reading news Earth papers and all of that. You can see how Mira Falan as Delenn here, the character has prepped herself for this interview this time. She wasn't prepped last time. She's prepped this time. And they still fuck Delenn over because she's the thing that is what they're afraid of. The ultimate fear of these racists, of the aliens becoming us becoming them. She's the embodiment of that fear.
And little do they know how responsible she is for the war.
Oh, yeah. But... Whoopsies. But here's the thing that I think is just something I want to comment on, because we haven't talked about it a lot on this podcast, and I don't know how familiar Sean and Steve are with this information too, but the original plans for what Delenn's character was supposed to be makes this scene kind of interesting when you look at it from a modern lens. Where originally JMS wanted to do a kind of trans narrative, like trans story with this, where Delenn was going to transition from gender, and it just didn't work out.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why in The Gathering, Delenn appears very masculine.
Yeah, especially like the chin prosthetic,
and they don't refer to them by gender.
The double voice, right?
Yeah,
like
they wanted to do. They were going to modulate the voice, but it just didn't work, and then JMS just felt like this isn't the time to do this. And he will go on, he'll work with the Wachowskis and do Sense8, where there's, a trans character in that, and the Wachowskis deal with that. So JMS does get to come back around to these things that he was interested in here, but it didn't work. But I just felt like knowing that information here, just looking at this scene here, I see so much on the news and on the internet, these fucking vile pieces of shit where they talk about
they're dangerous
trans people or gay people, and they get these pictures of them and just zoom in on it, and like that's enough to scare you. And I really got that here when they're just looking at Delenn. Look at Delenn. She's this mixing of things that should not be, and I see that so often.
It's very uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable.
The way that it is in this version of the show is much more interracial marriage.
Oh yeah,
kind of.
But
vibe.
But even outside that, that kind of antagonistic framing of Delenn is still relevant now. Like we said, the people that are victimized by these fascist or right wing people do change, but the tactics don't change necessarily. No. So what they're doing to Delenn here, post 9/11, I saw happen to a lot of Muslims, and then now in this age, I see it happening to a lot of trans people. And so I just think that's what makes The Illusion of Truth an episode that is worth revisiting, because the landscape may change, the people that they may go after may change slightly, but their way of doing it doesn't necessarily, does it?
No, they pave the road the same way. It's just a different destination.
Has the war really ended, or has it simply changed shape? Has Sheridan's self-hatred grown into a desire to save humanity by making us into them? A program to mix human and Minbari DNA sounds absurd, fantastic, but it's already been done once. Delenn has shown him the way. Half human, half Minbari. She did it. Why can't we?
A lot of this rhetoric we used to see in Babylon 5 and Season 1 and Season 2 that was spouted from the outsiders or the dark horses or the burgeoning, like the verging threat. There's this moment I brought up a little while ago about the idea of the previous administration fucked it up. We could do it now. Earth could do it now. We heard that in the previous ISN episode from Senator Quantrell, who was the guy who was a senator for Babylon 5, but he didn't believe in it. And I just want to know from our guests here, going through this for the first time, your overall reactions to how a lot of these troublesome themes and thoughts and mentalities from Earth has just kept growing and growing and growing, because you get something like in season 1 and The Sky Full of Stars, where that guy invades Sinclair's brain.
Great
And
episode.
And he's convinced, and he seems like a lone wolf, convinced that there's a fifth column and that the Minbari didn't end the war, they changed the war. And we see that's now the viewpoint of ISN in this episode. Dan Randall propositions that the war didn't end, it just changed. They're attacking us on the genetic level. So I just want to hear from both of you about your overall experiences of seeing how those antagonistic ideas from the outside random Earth people has now just become the status quo.
It's what happens. It's what's happening. Like, this was made in the 90s and it's still happening now. And I don't know how much of this was JMS calling out what he was seeing or kind of projecting like this is how it's going to end up if we keep this way. I think it's absolutely chilling. And I think it's one of the reasons that Babylon 5 is such a fresh show still, because it just seems like this could have been written today. And that's to JMS's credit. I give him a lot of shit for some of his writing stuff, but like he really called it out. And it's like you said, very, very frightening, and it's also even more effective because we just had this whole war, and it's like, well, now we got to deal with Earth. Like, oh yeah, Earth. Oh God, those guys are still fucking around and being terrible.
Yeah, I think JMS is, as we've said, somebody who knows his history. I think JMS, the impression I get is that JMS is very, very attuned to, how, racism and how fascist ideologies grow. And obviously he has a lot of, he seems pretty knowledgeable on like World War II history. He's mentioned that a lot, especially with the Night Watch, like when the Night Watch was a thing. With that guy who was looking at the camera, the monitors, and was like, "Doesn't it make you feel like God?"
Creepy man.
It's like, yeah, thanks, dude. I always think about that, but like, I think he has a knowledge of like that. This is just pure, like race essentialism. Like it's just like this extremely, he understands kind of what it looks like, these like right-wing ideologies when they kind of take hold, when they kind of grow. Like we've seen the right-wing faction, the Earth First movement kind of growing since the first season. Like he's done a very good job of kind of slowly having this grow. And, we saw in the previous ISN report, this attitude is not necessarily new to like Earth citizens. It's like, there was some of this before. It hadn't taken full hold yet, but it was like there was some of it. But seeing it to this degree is like it. And like we said, the stuff with focusing so much on Delenn and Delenn's appearance and showing Delenn's face and being like, is this the future? Is this what we're going towards?
This is the future that the liberals want. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that. He may as well have just said that. It's very chilling.
There was that Time magazine photo that was pretty famous. I don't know if it was around this time where it was like, this is what people will look like in the future, and it was like a child of mixed race. It's like if we keep, and so I think people were freaking out about that, and I don't think that was the intention.
Yeah, it was
of Time
like
magazine.
They did that. They did that photo
like,
of O.J. Simpson, and they like darkened his skin. Like I remember that too. That was like a big thing. This was also after the in American politics in the 1988 election, the whole Willie Horton thing. If you guys, I don't know if you guys
I don't know. Rachel shaking.
There was a thing basically when George H.W. Bush was elected.
The good Bush, yeah.
The one we all love. He had a
rest in peace.
Basically, they did they ran like a very race baiting campaign against Dukakis, and they basically said that like, oh, Dukakis has this policy of, he just lets people go into prison and just lets them right out, and they put up this guy Willie Horton who and he was a black man, and they basically just used him as like a boogeyman, like a racist boogeyman. And they would just show his face constantly in these ads, and like the media just like fell for it completely.
Sounds
and just like
super
went with
American to me.
No,
it very
still
much
same
so.
here.
And it's part of the reason why he won the election.
and
so
that's the
like,
thing too that I really like about B5 is it captures numerous amounts of cycles of how this mentality can grip and become overt.
Yeah.
This is right before 9/11, this show, right? This is like mid to late 90s. And after an event like 9/11, look how not just America, but the world went into frenzy. The journalism and the right wing and all of that. And Babylon 5 also can show like the other side of it, like with how Trump came to be, like this growing dissatisfaction with stuff and blah, blah, blah. Babylon 5 has both. Right? Where obviously, like when Santiago died, like that was their JFK equivalent. And it's like, okay, but like you consider it now and go, yeah, that type of thing still happens. But also Babylon 5 still has that thing of the growing dissatisfaction. We lost this war when we should have won this war that should have been easy, but it was more complicated than it ought to have been. We didn't lose. That thing is very much something that sadly just hasn't gone away.
No.
Probably won't go away.
Was
History repeats itself.
especially in America after like the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like, we would have won that if we had some if we had Rambo
If
going.
other
in there.
people played fair, we totally would have won.
And that was
but
also
they cheated.
And that was also the Korean War as well.
Yeah.
And
But that's part of the magnificent thing about B5 and JMS as a showrunner and a writer, very much by this point, is that he goes for the philosophy underneath all of those things, which is how you can connect it to all of these other situations, and you can continue to decades after it was made, because it's not about the thing, it's about the beliefs that cause that thing to happen.
And we're deeply human. This is a part of being deeply human, and we have these both beautiful things about us and these horrible things about us. And we're using this in our sci-fi show. Where I really get bowled over by this in terms of science fiction television is usually what Earth has become here is not the case, say, when you look at Star Trek or some others, where you often get in those, oh, it's the rogue random admiral or captain who's the...
It's just one bad apple, not a bunch.
It's one bad apple, not a bunch. And when they do try often, like with modern Star Trek, to say, no, it's a systematic problem, they fail because they actually have nothing to say about that other than it exists. And I sit there going, yeah, but what else? With Babylon 5... we've hit upon so many topics within this singular episode about systematic problems, systematic failures, profiling, all of this stuff in this singular episode, while Star Trek Discovery, Picard, they try. Sometimes Strange New Worlds will try and just shove in actual footage from, real life history and say, see, we're making a point. But at the end, I sit there going, yeah, but other than saying this is bad, what's your points? And I appreciate that right from the gate, JMS is not just saying, oh, this stuff is bad, by the way. He actually has points to make about it. He's showing us that historically speaking, there's patterns to this. There's patterns that you can see, and there's patterns that get avoided from people because they'd rather not notice it until it's too late. And that's what makes an episode like The Illusion of Truth one that I think is really strong.
Okay. Now that we've talked about deep philosophical things, can we just say that Stephen Furst does an amazing job directing this episode?
This is his
Great job.
first
Great job,
direction
Furst.
on Babylon 5.
He does direct this one.
Great job, Veer.
He will
Veer,
direct.
nice job, buddy.
He will
Nice
direct
job,
some
Flounder.
others. He will direct some other episodes, and I don't think it's spoilerific to say, but more often than not, they give him the more abstract type stories to play around with as a director. And I don't know why that is. I think maybe it was just, I know sometimes with directions and TV shows, it's just, this is what you're given. But consistently, they will give him the more kind of interesting ones, like interesting to film, say, ones. And I think what I really noticed about him as a director in comparison to other ones is he's really into blocking. This episode was really about how impactful the blocking was of the actors on that set and how the camera would move with them. I really found the last scene is brilliant, and JMS even clarified that's how he wrote it in the script. He wrote it exactly like that because it just visually tells a story. But one of my favorite moments was when Sheridan was sitting down with Dan Randall at that little table and Dan was giving his point of view, and the camera just dollies right behind Sheridan and just swoops in on Dan Randall, all one smooth one-take shot. I just really thought Stephen Furst nailed this, and I cannot recollect, I'm sure someone out there will tell me, but I think he's the only cast member to direct episodes. I think he's the only one because he's had experiences with directing things outside of B5, and I think they just said, hey, do you want to do some? And I think he was just like, yeah, sure, I'll do some. I really liked his direction.
Yeah, I really like the way that he plays with the camera. Like, sometimes it is a little bit tropey. It's like, oh, Sheridan's off kilter, so the camera's off kilter too.
Yeah.
But it works. It helps tell the story. What did you two Babylon boys in particular notice?
I loved the point of view stuff from the camera. I thought it was fun. I think that's the one thing I'll say about the direction. It had levity to it. It had a lightness, and it was willing to be like, what if the camera just kept poking at Lanier?
That was a great scene.
What if Bill, hey Bill, I'm just gonna like shove a camera at your face. Is that all right?
You need to pretend that this thing is floating next to you.
And speaking of blocking, that last shot is an all-timer. This might be one of the best endings of any episodes of Babylon 5.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite.
It is extremely well staged.
So good.
Like you said, every character is kind of layered in, and they're doing something very particular. I thought he did a great job, honestly.
And it's just great to see, like, you get so much. I really like doing that kind of like character, like everyone has like a character reaction that is completely, no words said. It's just totally visual. With like,
Ivanova's not there. Delenn is doing this thing.
Right. Yep. And then Sheridan, I love Sheridan just with his like, he's turned around just like with his arms. Like, it's so good.
He can't
it's
even look at it anymore, but he has to stick it out. He has to see it to the end.
It's his like military. It's a very like military, like he must stay strong, but he's not looking at it. Like
he's zoned out from it, but he's still there. It's
really good. I love that kind of stuff.
I think we note this down a lot with when an actor from the cast directs episodes, like with Jonathan Frakes or Patrick Stewart in Star Trek, or Roxanne Dawson for Voyager. She really nails this too. You can tell when an actor is the director because they just give the actual people performing a lot more stuff to do than in
room
other
to
episodes.
Breathe as well a lot of the time.
Like they get to. There's something about it. Stephen Furst has it where, there's lots of fun camera tricks and stuff, but there's just lots of moments where I can just see him saying, hey, just do this little reaction in the background. It'll be fun. Let's just do that. I can just get that vibe from him here. And I just want to say that there is an interview or a convention footage of Stephen Furst talking about direction and how he really praised, as does everyone in B5, John C. Flynn III, who is the DP for Babylon 5. He really said that everything he knew how to do was from Flynn. There's an amusing little anecdote where he says Flynn would walk up to him and say, that shot, you don't want to do that shot. And then just walk away and be like, what does that mean? And then he'll be like, oh, I look back and the shot was shit. He knew. He knew the shot was going to be garbage.
Thank you, John.
And then he'll be like,
this guy is just taking names here.
If you ever engage with Babylon 5 cast stuff, no, it does not take long for people just to say John C. Flynn III really held a lot of things together. He was a consistent voice for the show production-wise, and you see it in every episode. I'm just going to say it. Like, out of these 90s sci-fi television shows, he's the only DP I know. Like, I don't know who any of the DPs are in Star Trek. Do you?
True.
I know who directors are in Star Trek.
No.
I know who some of the directors are, but DPs?
Those old Star Trek shows look fine, but that's correct. That's not something that would be on the tip of my
And
tongue.
we sought him out because in those earlier episodes, we're just like, wow, this looks awesome. Who did this? Okay, this name keeps coming up, John Flynn.
His name was in this episode on one of the cryo chambers. Just a little.
Oh, was
Easter
it?
egg.
I remember they called one of the colonies on Mars was Flynn Town. I was like, that's for Johnny. For Johnny.
He's still active, still working. He's still great. John C. Flynn III. Thank you so much for helping
Back
these
for the
directors.
reboot.
Please help. Thanks for helping these directors. Lends this show real nice.
Learn the ropes.
He just came up to me and goes, "You're not gonna like what you see." And then he walks away. So I changed the shot. I mean, he was great. He had my back, and just wonderful.
It is time for the section of the show that we all love, the section that everyone is dripping for. It is Spotlight, the part of the show, no, not the Michael Keaton film. It's a part of the show where we shine a spotlight on an actor or actress that appeared in a given episode. We talk about their performance, anything we've found them in other media, and pieces of trivia.
Oh, God.
Of course, we're going to have to talk about the actor for Dan Randall, who is
Jeff Griggs.
I'm going to just...
Of course.
I'm just going to drop this bomb in here.
No.
No. I'm talking about the performance. I'm going to drop the bomb in here. 95% of the time, I've hated his performance. I've really not liked it. You know what it is? And maybe Americans can talk to me about this. Unlike Cynthia Torkman, the actress who played her, Kim Zimmer, I've never recognized the journalist he is supposed to be. Like, Kim Zimmer as Cynthia Torkman, I'm like, we have this.
Yeah.
Every country has this version, but this guy gives a performance that I go, on paper, I know what Dan is supposed to be, but this guy, something about him has always rubbed me up raw. Now, on this particular viewing, having to look at him, I really did get a lot out of the performance. There's so many little bits and bobs he's putting down, but that's my big bombshell. Most of the time, I've outright not liked this performance.
Yeah, I've always just been like, he's so dirty. That's the word that I would use to describe Dan Randall. He's like,
Filth.
He is
Filth.
dirty. He plays dirty. He sounds dirty.
He's slimy. He's greasy.
He's slimy.
He's slick.
A cesspool of humanity. And I'm like, of course they picked this man to do this assignment.
He's so lean. He's such a skinny guy. Like, I feel like he's a snake.
6'2", lean. He has a very similar build to you, Ryan.
Yeah. Steve, what do you think about Jeff Griggs in this? And is there like a certain kind of American reporter or journalist type that this actor is meeting at, do you think?
That's a good question. I to be completely honest, I'm just pretty neutral on the guy. I thought he did a fine job. I don't think he was a standout guest star. The one thing that we took away from it in our show is that he is quite handsome now. He's a silver fox, and then we found out some other stuff about him, which I'm sure we will get into. But as far as his performance, I don't know if there's a particular person that he's supposed to be emulating, but it's like I've definitely seen this kind of bland but sort of pushy guy on the news before. So he's like handsome but not super handsome, and he's got a very his instrument is his voice, and he's good at it.
It's kind of a Ken Brockman vibe.
A little bit, yeah. I think that's and I think that's one of the reasons why this episode is so funny. It could just be a Simpsons episode. But I thought he was fine. What we found out about him later is, I think, much more
golden.
Yeah.
Sean, what about you? What do you think about this performance, this embodiment of the character? And I just want to specify, I'm not talking about like he's specifically evoking an individual reporter. It's just when I watched for A Now for a Word, Cynthia Torkman, I'm like, oh, I've seen this type of news anchor or this type of investigative journalist my whole entire life. For me, in Australia, Dan is a little bit something that I don't understand quite as strongly. So what do you think about the performance and just this type of reporter man that this actor is putting down here, Sean?
Well, I will say Cynthia Torkman for me, I knew I knew the actor from that because she was an actor
Guiding
in the
Light?
soap opera Guiding
She was
Light.
from Guiding Light. My mom's favorite.
Which was one of that was my mom's favorite too before it got canceled.
My mom's favorite. Yeah, she played
but it was
Rita.
a CBS soap opera, and that was a big one. So I recognized her from that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can really ascribe his performance to any like particular type of reporter. It felt kind of like straight down the line kind of thing. I thought his performance was fine. I would say, like, honestly, and I know this, I think it was pretty obviously this wasn't the intent, but like, I think it works for me now because it does remind me of a kind of like a lot of conservative kind of hosts now that are kind of like they feel like these weird eunuchs, like I don't know, like a Ben Shapiro type.
Yeah.
Like these people that are just like, it seems like something is like, this guy seems like he's trying to be really normal.
He's a
which
pod
only makes him
person.
even
He's
more,
a pod person.
Yeah, like which makes him seem like a pod person. Yeah, like he seems like he's really fucked up. That's the vibe I got from him, and that's why it kind of worked for me. I was just like, yeah, it's like, seems like he's really trying to come across like a normal guy. And because of that, he seems like a freak. That was my kind of vibe of his performance.
I will say that he does remind me of one of Australia's print journalists.
Oh, really?
Yes.
One?
Does he not remind you a bit of Andrew Bolt?
Oh, that's a good pull.
Ooh!
But not as charismatic as Andrew Bolt. Weird.
No.
And Andrew Bolt sucks.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Are we going to refuse to explain?
No, they don't explain their shit on their podcast to me. I'm supposed to know all of these 1990s American references like I should give a shit.
About the 2004 John Kerry election.
We referenced that one a lot.
Yeah, I should know what Surge energy drink is. Yeah, but
here's
whatever.
the thing. There's a lot of younger Americans now who don't remember anything about that.
Remember, they weren't alive.
Well, specifically the DNC, the Democratic nomination.
Oh God, here they go again. These damn Americans making it about them. No, I want to reference the fact that I have not seen this actor in any other piece of work, but it is important to note that he was a soap opera actor for a period of time. Was it The Days of Our Lives? And we got a rather compelling email from the last appearance you guys were on when we were talking about the actress from Sick Transit V, who's also in soap operas, which is one of the things to consider about why Babylon 5 can get these soap opera actors is, out of all the type of actors, they're the ones who learn lines very quickly.
They're efficient.
They are very efficient.
They gotta learn. They gotta be on the ball every day.
Babylon 5 hiring soap opera actors, including Cynthia Torkman's actress, like you said, makes a lot of sense. And for an episode like this where he has 70% of the lines of dialogue, you need a guest star who is reliable at learning those lines as well as embodying this character. And with the three that we've talked about, Cynthia Torkman, the lady from Sick Transit Via, and this guy, they're playing fucked up, weird, artificially performed pod people. And I don't mean this to disparage these individual actors. As I said, I've praised each of these actors, but being soap opera actors, that's kind of a given.
Yeah.
Because soap opera characters are weirdly performed. And even if I'm a lovely email that we got said, hey, stop bagging on soap operas, the perception of daytime soap opera actors is not favorable. Let's just say that.
It's a very specific skill set, and it's amazing when people can do it well.
But that's not the most important thing about Jeff Griggs.
See, Ryan.
He's a silver fox.
He's a silver fox, but
the Babylon 5 boys.
We've talked about his performance. Now let's talk about his career. As we mentioned, we've never seen him in any TV shows before. You want to hear about his first credit?
Oh, of course.
Okay. Oh, wait. Babylon Boys, you haven't seen him in anything else, have you?
Have never seen him in anything.
No.
I hear a smile on Steve's face, though. I hear a smile.
Yeah.
Okay, so his first credit was called Pay to Play.
Oh, I paid to play it, all right.
Yeah. And interesting enough, so it was directed by Jim Steele. And this was a quote about that director. He was the only person in this business today to understand how to mix comedy and sex.
Oh, what kind of business is this, Rachel?
Porn.
Oh,
porn.
Jeff.
So
Nice.
Jeff did
the
porn.
Jeff Griggs is
As Tony. So he either
He
went by
played a character.
Tony Sinatra or Tony Erickson.
Oh, his aliases.
Was what he was credited as.
Do you think that's
mostly.
where
Tony Sinatra.
Do you think JMS got the name of Bryan Cranston's character Erickson from having perused Jeff Griggs' resume of work?
Oh, and I believe that it was late 80s when or maybe
Pay to Play.
1980
So
that Pay to Play. He did it for a couple of years.
I was very shocked to find out a lot of information we'll go through with Jeff Griggs, but yes, he did pornography and he is a gay man, so he did gay pornography, and he's not the only actor we've done on the Spotlight that has done porn. Most recently, we talked about Ed Wasser, Mr. Morden. He produced a softcore pornography film and starred in it, a hetero one. But
Hey,
and
have
same
fun out
with
there, man.
the actress of Julie Masanti. She did some softcore porn films. So there's no disparaging comments about that at all. It's just a rather interesting piece of information to learn.
And he's the first one that he did hardcore. porn.
And yes, I just want to preface, Yumlings out there, you should really support us on Patreon because we do the extra hard work that the other Babylon 5 podcasts don't do. Yes, Rachel and I this morning watched some of his pornography. Yes, we looked for it. Yes, we wanted to see what he...
I did that investigation. Thank
Rachel
you very
did it,
much.
so please support us on Patreon because we do that extra legwork. Like the Babylon 5 boys, they looked at his IMDb and said, "Oh, he's handsome."
And said, "That's it. Handsome man."
They didn't
Walked
scroll.
away.
They didn't even scroll down to his
man.
first IMDb trivia, which is about George Bush. Which, guys,
Oh my God.
you're really
That's
fucked
what's
up because
upsetting.
you guys
That's what's
are
upsetting to
you
me.
guys reference both Bushes all the time, and you really screwed the pooch on that. But I just wanted to say, like, yes, we've had a look at it, and it's very, very amusing in terms of his acting. Is just Dan Randall.
Yeah, his voice is
that's
very
funny.
much the
He's
same.
he's playing there's this one we watched where he's playing like the boss at this company, and
He's
best way
running
to-
an escort
He's running an escort service, and he's basically giving him a job interview, and he sounds like Dan Randall, he acts like Dan Randall, and it's humorous because he is legitimately given funny lines of dialogue.
Yeah, it's
it is
classic
comedic,
porn dialogue.
as that quote just said, mixing comedy with sex.
Yeah.
And his performance when he's delivering the lines, the key that I would give you is there's an alternative universe where Jeff Griggs could have been one of the kids in the hole. He just gives such a kids in the hole
Oh my
type
God.
performance.
Interesting.
It's really funny. He really reminds me of you guys know the Kids in the Hole better than I do, I assume, but he's the guy in Kids in he really reminds me of the guy in the Kids in the Hole with the kind of shrieky voice, the one with like the most like high pitched voice, the one who's
Kevin?
Oh, that's
Kevin McDonald?
Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin McDonald.
yeah, the one who's in that 70s show as the Reverend.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yes.
He's basically Kevin McDonald. If Kevin McDonald didn't exist and this guy stepped in his roles, he would have nailed it. Honestly, even though
I would have loved it if Kevin McDonald played this part. In this.
yeah.
that would have
That would be so
That's
stupid.
like that's a dream.
Him like trying to convince Sinclair. Him smooth talking Sinclair.
Why?
Well, I'll tell you why. Most of the guys that come in here looking for work are dull in the sack. They're only interested in their own pleasure. They never stop to consider the other person. And let me tell you something, kid. When people are paying for it, they want consideration, and lots of it. And sometimes they want a little more.
he has a history with the former president of the United States, George W. Bush.
Yes.
And
that is
can we
the
pass
upsetting
it?
thing about all
Can
of
we
this.
pass it over to the
Right,
Babylon
yeah.
5 boys because they're the Bush experts? I want to hear what they've
love
gathered in their
Bush.
little research about all of this. Tell us all what you guys know about Jeff Griggs and former president of the United States, George W. Bush.
Yeah, what is his connection with it, Steve?
He
Again?
just
You
he
don't
loved
remember.
Bush, right? Like he loved George
no.
W. Bush, and he painted like a portrait of him or
Yes.
something.
Which hung
And, George-
which hung in the White House.
After
what
9/11,
event?
after 9/11, he was so moved by what happened, and he said, "Mr. President, I'm going to paint you." And George
he
Bush's
got invited
team,
there.
He got
Yeah,
By
they
the
said,
White House.
"Hey, we love this. Come over here and enjoy the hospitality of W."
Oh Jesus Christ!
And,
you can have a beer with
took
him.
his mum along.
And from
Took his
and
mom.
he took his
He's a guy you
he
can
took
have
his
a beer
mother.
with.
He took his mom, And I think from what I saw from my brief research, that was nothing but grief for the Bush team because they were like, oh shit, this guy has been in gay porn. Oh crap.
It was like all the things about this first portrait after 9/11 showing like Bush practically or literally crying in front of all of this Americana in the background. And then everybody is just like, the dude that painted that was in gay porn.
It's like shit. No,
I'm finding this painting. By the way, this is the first time I'm seeing this doing a Google search. This painting looks like shit.
I didn't even see this.
I will send you the link, and I will post on.
Yeah, I could be looking at the wrong one, but I'm pretty sure this is it because
all of his paintings are in a very similar vein.
I don't actually mind his painting, to be honest, but
it's not
that's
great
fine. For a presidential portrait painting. It's pretty standard to me.
I think it's what Bush deserves.
And here's the thing: is Bush is a funny-looking guy. Anytime you put that in a cartoon or painting, he's very funny-looking.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
he's like a weird. He looks deeply like sad, but like in a way
9/11.
That's like, yeah. Well, yeah, fair enough. He's mourning.
Sean, we're supposed to never forget.
Yeah.
Sean, never forget.
I forgot about
Where
how
do you
sad
think that
it was.
painting is now?
But there's actually questions about that. I actually went down a rabbit hole that is intense. Now, for people out there, there's a free article on if you type in Jeff Griggs free library, there's a free library news article about this called "The President, the Painter, and Porn Actor." Jeff Griggs presented a portrait to President Bush in the White House. Then tabloids discovered his gay porn past. And it just breaks down what we would assume, which is they found out that he was gay and it spiraled out of control. And Jeff Griggs has a very positive but also sad outlook on all of this, where a lot of it boils down to him defending his gay porn past, where he says the thing that you've heard. I went to LA, struggling actor, couldn't get work, needed money, did gay porn, got all of this stuff with that money, like helping my friends and family. He's not ashamed of it, but having this come back at him, he had to defend that. He had to defend that. And it's just upsetting to kind of read this article that also reads like an ISN news article. Like, it's just very upsetting to hear this, but also like he has to defend these things, and he has certain lines that sound exactly like Dan Randall as well, which makes it very upsetting in another way. But he has this overall attitude of, look, you can pick on me all you like, I've earned that, but don't do it to him. He's the president, is the sentiment that Jeff Griggs had at that time. Mm-hmm. And there's so many amazing quotes in this article. I recommend people giving it a look up because it really does just give this attitude of what it was like post 9/11 George Bush years of, hey, look, as a gay man, I don't think all of the stuff he does helps me out, but he's the president and he's doing his damnedest in these troubling times to get America in the right place. And so I would recommend to everyone, and I'll link this in the social medias, this article and how it just breaks down everything when it comes to the media cycle just turned against this guy who loved the president, did a painting of him. Like, in all honesty, who cares? Well, conservative America, of course, cares. So you just have to. He had to go through that, and he came out of it fairly okay. But the article itself also does weird things, like points out that Griggs is gay, and then in quotations, but not single. What does that have to do with anything? Like, literally, what does that have to do with anything?
Don't acknowledge that his partner...
Yeah, that's horrible. That's really
And then
horrible.
another one, this really disgusts me, and is, as for whether Griggs' past, in quotation, bad choices really painted the president into a corner. Again, the article is even saying, like, what he did is bad. Like, give the guy a break. Give the guy a break. But there was great amusement in finding out that this guy has a deep love of Bush. He may not agree with the man all the time, but he's sold on the man. Look, here's a fascinating thing about the painting, though. I wanted to find a picture of it. It was very hard to find one. I found one on this site where somebody had a print of it. So it wasn't the original. They had a print of it.
Oh, I just found the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, well, I just Googled.
Where he has it.
Well, I didn't do that. I just Googled. Somebody had a print of it. And their print was from their LA manager, so they were an actor or someone in the entertainment industry, they had a copy of this painting, a print of it. And on the print, it is made out to Rob Lowe. Now, whether it is Rob Lowe is unknown, but it's made out to Rob Lowe. Like, this is a copy for Rob Lowe. And the more I look at Jeff Griggs, who seems to have retired from acting and is just mainly an artist, the more I'm fascinated by his story. Just somebody
he seems to be doing some stage work. At least a couple of years ago, or maybe more than a decade now.
And I just find somebody like him interesting, who did gay porn at the time of AIDS, and is somebody who, at least according to this time, is also like conservative and believes in what the Republican Party has to say, and felt the urge as an artist to reach out to Bush and do a portrait of him at his most, arguably one of his most vulnerable moments.
The article makes it out that he had to pay for his own airline tickets up to Washington or across to Washington, more likely, to paint this portrait.
Yeah. So that's most of the stuff we got on Jeff Griggs. For the Babylon Boys, how do you feel about just all of this? Because whenever we have you on, we talk about these actors, and it feels like we're kicking over an ant's hill and looking at what happens. And for us, and especially for you being first-time viewers, you're just watching a show and you go, oh, this person's just come in. You don't even think about them necessarily as a person. You may go, oh, they gave a good performance. Maybe if you're lucky, you've seen them in something. But how do you feel about, like, in this case, being able to look more deeply into somebody who just walked onto the show?
Well, anyone who's that big of a fan of George W. Bush, it is troubling to find that out.
It's a little weird. I don't know. Yeah, it's a little weird.
I guess I would say that. It's like, these are real people and they're complicated. They have their own. I think, you know what? I think we have been a lot more flexible and understanding with this stuff ever since our whole thing with Tom Booker, who played Jinxo. Because we slagged on him so hard in our episode about Grail. We were just like, man, this guy sucks. He's giving the worst performance of all time.
Little did he know he was similar to you guys, basically.
And then, like, we end up stumbling upon this guy, and we're like, will you come onto our show? And he was just, like, the nicest dude in the world. And he's like, yeah, that was my first ever job. And, like, I was really nervous. And, like, I had all these big dreams in LA, and it wasn't and it's just like, from that moment on, I'm like, I want to be as first of all, sorry, Tom, like, honestly, but whoops. But from that moment on, it's like, I want to be as understanding as I can with these people. Like, it's a hard life.
How Steve found compassion.
Yeah.
Like Christ. That's my Grinch story. Yeah. Or Christ.
Wow,
the
beautiful.
Grinch or Christ.
That's beautiful. Very inspiring.
That said, George W. Bush is a monster. So,
yeah, he's not a great guy. Yeah. I would personally not paint a portrait of him.
But you will keep his memory alive every single episode by quoting him, right, on your show. So you're
absolutely.
Sean,
absolutely. I'll always talk about, like,
you're part of the problem.
or
Sean, you're part of the problem.
strategery. That's mostly what. Or don't mess with.
We can't help it. We can't help it. We just love W so much.
I knew you guys would get great enjoyment out of this because you guys jokingly always reference Bush, and he is an actor who probably has the deepest connection to Bush, being one who actually met him in real life and gave him a piece of art that hung in the White House. So there you go, guys.
Yeah, I mean, this is honestly a gift. It really, when we posted that episode up, and I think you messaged Ben about it, we were just like, oh, man, how did we miss that?
Dan, I don't like to make long-distance diagnoses. But yes, that would be my assessment based on what I've seen here.
And if he is unstable, that might make it easier for others to use him for their own purposes.
The Illusion of Truth, I rate it on a scale of Yum being bad, Yum Yum being good, a Yum Yum.
Yum Yum.
A Yum Yum. I think this is a good episode.
Yum Yum.
Yeah, I'd say there's a Yum Yum. I'd say that too. I'd go with that.
Yum Yum.
My enjoyment of it does vary each time I rewatch it, but I never thought that it was a bad episode. So it is firmly a Yum Yum for me.
Yum Yum.
We need to know what we're talking about next time on the podcast.
On the next Babylon 5.
This is Babylon 5. Next time on the Yum Yum Podcast. Babylon 5, Third Space.
What?
Yeah, we're doing the movies.
What the heck? The crew of Babylon 5 discover an ancient artifact floating in hyperspace.
Ooh, nothing gets my gears going like Babylon 5 dealing with artifacts.
That dude, the
It worked out so
Garibaldi-
well in season 1.
The dude that Garibaldi was talking to with the Drazi statue was a xenoanthropologist.
Oh, and there was artifacts. See, this is why we're doing Third Space next. You see, the Babylon 5 movies have weird places slotted in. There's different viewing orders. Usually Rachel and I watch the movies after watching the show, but for the podcast, that doesn't feel fun.
I don't
Let's
remember
break it up.
watching Third Space.
You do. I'm not going to spoil anything. But there's certain actors that appear in it that you'll see and go, oh, they're here. Not going to give anything away. Look, am I saying that this is Grail 2? No, I'm not. Of course not. Tom Booker's not going to be in this movie, but imagine if he was. But that is it. Third Space. So everyone, make sure to give Third Space a watch in the meantime. So yes, Third Space, not Atonement. Third Space is next. Everyone, do the right thing and watch Third Space, all right? Good. Now, Sean, Steve, where can people find you and the podcast on the internet?
We are on Twitter. Shut up.
Yeah,
So we are on Twitter.
All right, you got it. All right, never mind.
We are on Twitter and Instagram at LastBestB5. And we're also, that's our Gmail account, lastbestb5@gmail.com. Sean, I'll let you plug your own stuff now because I was just mean to you.
Well, you kind of covered all of it with the Last Best B5. But I make comics. So if you want to follow, I make a comic called Red Ring of Death. Follow it at RROD_ comic at Twitter. That's mostly where I post stuff.
Do you just do Twitter? You don't do Instagrams?
Not at the moment.
You want to stick to the Twitter platform, like the leech you are?
I've been there for a while.
You can't get rid of me.
I'm there for now.
It's your home now.
Until things get really bad. It's easier for me to reply to people.
You're just like people on Earth on Babylon 5. Things still get real bad. Stick around.
Oh no, it's not too bad. Martial law is okay. It's cut the crime rate, and you know what? Because they reclaimed part of Mars, we get 2 extra hours before curfew.
That's great.
Yay.
That was very generous of them.
Very nice. There's a new holiday dedicated to it. Yeah,
I really liked that. Oh, yeah, 2 hours. That's very nice.
We'll make sure to plug all of your stuff in the description below. People, do make sure to check out the Last Best Babylon 5 podcast.
And you will find our links as well in that description.
Yeah, we'll be above their links.
Yeah.
Because we're top dog.
Yeah. It's our podcast.
It only makes sense.
Just like Jeff Griggs, we're a top. Yes.
Can confirm.
I watched.
All right, good
He's
to
a
know.
top.
Good to know.
He's a top. Okay. Fun fact, Sean. But we can be found under YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast on your social medias of choice. Email us directly at yumyumpod@gmail.com. If you are not supporting us on Patreon, I don't see those. I don't see Sean and Steve there on Patreon supporting us. Very disappointed. We have a Patreon where we have a whole load of bonus content. We talk about the Alien movie franchise, the X-Men movie franchise. Oh, we even talked about the Star Trek movies. You can hear me groan in agony talking about Star Trek Into Darkness, my least favorite film.
Oh,
not Star Trek film, film.
Of the
I
whole
love
time.
Nemesis so much.
Oh, Nemesis. That's Tom Hardy. Remember that actor? He's
the man
in it. But
who has his lips are too sexy for film.
Yeah, apparently Tom Hardy usually has a beard or a mustache or a scar or something over his lips because apparently his lips are too kissable. Google Tom Hardy's lips and you'll see many, many pictures of how kissable those lips are. And we talk
Interesting.
about all of that and more on our Patreon. You can be a part of a group Discord where you can talk to us. You can harangue me and Rachel for not wanting to watch Star Trek Picard. You can keep begging. We won't do it. We're done. But you can actually hear our Star Trek Picard Season 2 thoughts on our Patreon. We went episode by episode when it first aired. And then we decided, no, we're good. No more Picard.
No. It
Strange
was
New
you.
Worlds.
I would have gotten dragged into it if you hadn't changed your mind, and I will forever be grateful for that. So thank you.
You know who I'm-
my dear husband, for not making me watch that.
You know who I'm grateful to? Other than the Grateful Dead? I'm grateful to Jakar because he said the phrase good eating to you in The Gathering. He never says it again in the show or the movies. He would have said it in this ISN report, but he knew better than to talk to the cameraman. So he didn't show up.
He's taking a step back.
He took a step back.
He said no.
Public life.
He's got to clean he's got to clean his eye hole out. He got to clean that eye hole. He doesn't have his new eye yet, so he's got to clean his eye hole out. Got to keep that clean or else it gets infected. And Jakar doesn't want that. That would ruin his pleasure thresholds. So we will say it instead. Steve, Sean, Rachel, good eating to you.
Good eating to you all.
Good eating to us all.
Good eating to everyone, and to all a good night.